Hey, Dorothy, you never stop and think about me.
Hey, listen!
And welcome back, or welcome to my channel. My name is Shaq, and today we're going to be doing the Taylor Swift Evermore book tag. So if you don't know, I absolutely love Taylor Swift. I actually share a birthday with her. Big flex, but okay. That's not flexing, what is this? I actually do love Taylor Swift. I used to be such a closeted Taylor Swift fan, but now I'm out and I'm proud. So Evermore is Taylor Swift's 9th studio album. It was released on the 11th of December 2020. I do prefer Evermore to Folklore because I just feel like Evermore is actually perfection. I probably listened to this album all the way through every single day since it came out. Like, honestly, I really have. So this tag was originally kindly created by Windows to Worlds. I will leave the original tag down below. They didn't tag me, but they did make this tag, and I stole the questions from them, and I actually really like the tag. So thank you so much, Windows to Worlds, for creating this tag. Yeah, without further ado, we're going to do a book tag all about Evermore and the songs on Evermore that correlate to book prompts. So our first question is for Willow, and this prompt is to pick a book that has a main character who you just can't help but fall in love with. I have a multitude of answers that I could pick for this question, but I'm going to specifically go for Mac from You Should See Me in a Crown. This is a sapphic tale about Liz, who she loses out on some funding for the university of her choice, and so she decides to run for prom queen because at her school it is known that the prom queen and prom king, they get like a scholarship to the university of their choice. So Liz, because she hasn't got the funding anymore, she goes after and campaigns for the title of prom queen to get the scholarship. But on the way she meets a sapphic love interest called Mac. By far my favourite character in this whole book was Mac, and I wish we had learned a little bit more about her, but that's okay, I still couldn't help but fall in love with her anyway. Next we have a prompt for Champagne Problems. This is for us to pick a book with a broken relationship in, which you could probably pick any fucking book at all, like any book that has ever been written. For Champagne Problems I have decided to go with How Do You Like Me Now by Holly Bourne. How Do You Like Me Now follows our main protagonist Tori, who is like a well-known like feminist, some sort of like figure in the public eye, like public figure, and she is about 30 and she gets to the point where all of her friends are getting married, having children, and she looks at her own relationship and her own life and asks herself, is this really what I want? Am I any less of a feminist if I do want to get married to a man, if I do want to have his children, and I do want to be a good mother? Which the answer is yes, you can absolutely be a feminist and all those things can coexist, and that is what Holly Bourne gets at in this book. This is one of the first Holly Bourne books that are adult. Most of her works are young adult and not adult, but I really did enjoy this, and the relationship that's depicted in this, the one that Tori is reflecting on, like, is this what I truly want? It is so broken and so unhealthy, and it is going down the pan. Not for any like really bad reasons, I don't think. He doesn't cheat, he doesn't really treat her badly, I don't think. I can't remember. If he does, then that's my bad. I can't remember if they are actually like abusive to one another or anything, but this relationship is so broken, and the ending of this is very satisfying because of that. So yeah, I would recommend this book from what I remember anyway. I haven't read it in a long time, but I would recommend based on my knowledge of it right now. Next is a prompt for Gold Rush, probably one of my least favorite songs on this album, but still a slapper. The prompt for Gold Rush is to pick a book we love with all of our heart. For this prompt I decided to go with Daisy Jones and the Six by Ted Jenkins Reid. I do actually love this book with all of my heart. If you didn't know and you've been living under several rocks, then Daisy Jones and the Six is about just that, Daisy Jones and the Six. It's about them forming together as two separate entities and becoming the biggest fictional band of the 70s and 80s. It also captures their fame and what they do as they are, you know, becoming the biggest band in the world, and also when they split up eventually as well. There is a lot of talk in this about like substance abuse and cheating and stuff, and it's one of my favourite books because all of the characters are morally grey in some way. They all have issues, they all have problems, but you still love them with all your heart anyway, which makes me love the book even more. Next we have 'Tis the Damn Season. For this prompt we do have to pick a book that encourages the main character to reconnect with their family. I did actually answer a question / prompt with this book in a recent tag video that I have done, but this is just perfect for this prompt. I decided to go ahead and answer with Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch. So this is basically all about our main character Lena, who has recently lost her mother to cancer, and she's always had a father, a really estranged father, who lives in Tuscany, and so she flies over there to visit him once her mother has died as she's grieving, and she learns a lot more about him and about her mother when she was pregnant with Lena, and it's just so cute. It is adorable and fits so well with this prompt. Next we have Tolerate It, which is probably one of my favourite songs on the album because it is so sad. For this prompt we do have to pick a relationship from a book that is suffering. For this prompt I have decided to go with Here's the Beehive by Sarah Croissant because there are a lot of cheating, a lot of broken marriages and relationships in this book. So we follow Anna and Connor as their love affair has spiraled out of control, and they are in this really toxic, abusive relationship, and neither of their spouses know about it. Unfortunately, Connor does die really unexpectedly, and Anna kind of blames herself for it, and she's more mourning all by herself because obviously the affair was happening in secret, and so she must mourn in secret as well. This was like fucked up, my dudes. I talked about this a little bit more in my January wrap up, which you can go ahead and watch. I'll leave it linked down below. But I found that the characters were really morally grey, and the relationships in here certainly do suffer because of this affair. It really does show what kind of effects being, you know, unfaithful to your partner do have on both you and them and your relationship, and the relationships in this definitely do suffer because of that. The next song on this list is Nobody No Crime, and we have to pick a book for Nobody No Crime that features murder. This is one you don't really expect to see in a category like this, but that is Let Me Hear a Rhyme by Tiffany Jackson. I love this when I read it. It actually goes with my outfit. Anyway, Let Me Hear a Rhyme by Tiffany Jackson follows up and coming singer Steph, who is brutally murdered. Murder! Prompt done. Goodbye. I'm just kidding. Let Me Hear a Rhyme is about Steph, who is an up and coming rapper, but unfortunately he gets murdered before he gets a chance to shine, which leads his sister and two of his best friends to uncover what happened to him, get his justice, get closure for him in their own little way, like celebrating his music and also, you know, making him famous from the grave. I didn't really expect to like this so much because it does have that murder mystery element, and when I noticed that was going to happen, I was like, oh, I don't really enjoy that, but I enjoyed it anyway. I think it was really well written. Tiffany Jackson, one of my new favourite authors. I just love her work a lot. Next prompt is for Happiness, which is again is one of my favourite songs on this album. And for this prompt, we do have to pick an old favourite that you can't relate to anymore. For this, I'm going to pick The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. I did do a whole John Green-a-thon, which is basically like a year-long readathon I did in 2019, where I read or reread all of John Green's books, and I did like a review for most of them and a live show for some of them, and I will link the Fault in Our Stars review I did for that down below. But from what I remember of The Fault in Our Stars, I really enjoyed it when it first came out. I watched the movie in cinema with one of my friends at the time, and I haven't rewatched the film, so I might feel differently about the film. But when I reread it, I just found Gus so controlling and overbearing, so when Hazel did something he didn't like, or she liked something he didn't really enjoy, he would like try and manipulate her and like push her down into like a box where he could like fit her in, if that makes sense. I didn't really appreciate the relationship with Hazel and Gus, and I actually really used to like them together, and I just reread it and realised that I didn't like it anymore. Next song on Evermore, we have Dorothea. I'm allowed to say it like that, I don't know. For this book, we do have to pick a book that features old or strong, or both, friendships. For this, you could pick any of this author's books, but I'm going to pick Simon vs. the Hero Dinner by Becky Albertalli. This is a really fluffy, at times, LGBTQ plus queer contemporary about Blue and Simon, who have been emailing back and forth under aliases, and they don't know who each other are. But under blackmail, Simon is outed and he loses most of his friendship group, and they have to really deal with the fact that Simon has lied to them, but he also was outed, and it can be a bit infuriating with the friendship group's reaction to this. They should support him, but they kind of like victimize themselves. But overall, they do obviously come back. Spoiler alert, it is a YA queer fiction. They're going to come back together, and they do have a really good bond by the end of this book. They have a really good friendship, and I really like to see that in books. I really do. Next is Coney Island, which, oh my god, what a song. I actually don't really like the Nationals bit in this, and I think that's like a basic popular opinion, but you know what, do with that information what you will. For this prompt, we have to pick a book that made us cry or completely destroyed us. So although this book didn't destroy me, it definitely did make me emotional, made me cry, and that is The Nowhere Girls by Amy Reed. I feel like I have stopped talking about this on my channel, even though it's one of my favourite books. But this is basically about Lucy, who was raped, and so her family moved out of town because no one believed her when she came out with the allegations that she had been raped. So they moved out, but Grace's family moved in, and Grace is kind of like living in Lucy's bedroom, seeing all like the evidence that's on her walls that she has been raped, and like just living in Lucy's mind. And so Grace really embodies her like struggle, and so she sets up the Nowhere Girls with some other girls that she has met who are also sick of the misogyny that is happening in their school. It's all about intellectual feminism and being more inclusive with like our thinking and how to protect people from going through what Lucy went through. It did make me cry because it is so wholesome in places, and it just makes me feel so like empowered, but also frustrated because these characters are going through what real life women in our society go through, and it makes me infuriated, but also really happy that they're all coming together. Just a whirlwind of emotions. It really did destroy me in that, I guess, that way. Next, we have the song Ivy, and the prompt for Ivy is to pick an unexpected favourite. Now, I'm not actually sure if I would class this as a favourite, but I definitely didn't expect it to love it as much as I did, and that is When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Kalanithi. Paul Kalanithi actually passed away shortly after he published his book, and I am literally deceased. It makes this book so much more raw. This is an autobiographical account, a memoir of Paul Kalanithi, who was a surgeon, and unfortunately again he has died, and his wife, I'm pretty sure, has to carry on the story, and I am like dead. Like, well, I'm not dead, but my emotions are. I didn't expect to like this, and I didn't expect to cry as much as I did. I didn't expect to be so like attached to Paul Kalanithi's life and what he went through and how hard it is to be a surgeon. I thought this was really well done. I miss him, and I didn't even meet him. He sounded like such a cool guy. Next, we have Cowboy Like Me. For this one, we do have to pick a book about criminals. Obviously, people doing this tag will pick Six of Crows for this one, but unfortunately, I am an uncultured swine. So I haven't read Six of Crows, but I have read Heroine by Mindy McGuinness. So this centers around softball star Mickey, who ends up in a unfortunate car accident with her best friend. They're both on the softball team. They both have like leagues and stuff and big games coming up. So Mickey decides to power through her pain by just dosing up on pain medication. When that medication has stopped being prescribed to her by the doctor, she starts to beg, borrow and steal, and her addiction spirals out of control, and she even tries heroin. So although I don't really associate drug addicts with being criminals specifically, I think that's a really wrong stereotype that has been brought out into the world. In this book, in this instance, Mickey does become a criminal because she starts to steal from those around her and sell, and also steal from elderly people to get their prescriptions and stuff. So they are criminals in the sense that they do criminal activity, but just because they're addicts doesn't necessarily make them criminals. I hope that makes sense. I hope that is okay. Next we have Long Story Short, one of my favourites anyway, songs on Evermore. For this book we do have to pick a book that made up our childhood. So I wasn't a big reader when I was a child. I kind of preferred going outside or playing a video game if I was stuck inside. I went through a phase in my life, which I have touched upon in a video before, where I just thought that reading was my sister's thing and I couldn't like copy and like do my own thing. So yeah, I didn't really do much reading in my childhood because of that really bad like you're copying me mentality. So I decided to give myself some reads that I think would have made up my childhood if I read them at the time. So although neither of these books were published at the time, I do think that these could have gone a long way in terms of like educating me, making me feel better about myself. And those are both George, I know what's gonna happen. And those are both George, and those are both Rick and George, both by Alex Gino. Alex Gino is a non-binary author, so it is they/them pronouns for Alex Gino, but they write the most fluffy, middle grade, queer books that you could ever imagine. So George is about our main character, who is a transgender child who really would like to play Charlotte in Charlotte's Web in their school production, but the teachers won't let them because they are biologically a boy and Charlotte from Charlotte's Web is a woman, she's a girl. But our main character is very determined to get this role anyway, and they will stop at nothing to do so. I feel like this would have benefited me because I not only was queer, obviously I still am, but I was queer in my childhood, and also I love to act, so I could heavily relate to our main character in this one, and I feel like I would have really enjoyed it in my childhood. And then Rick is about another child. We are following charming protagonists in this, so keep that in mind if you are going into these, who is friends with a bully called Jeff, and Rick knows that what Jeff is doing to the other kids in his class is not right, and he needs to change it somehow. I was bullied quite badly in school, and I feel like Alex Gino does an amazing job of depicting what it's like to be bullied, but also the complexities of the people on the other side of the bullying. They're going through stuff as well, and as someone who was bullied, it can be quite hard to come to terms with that, and I wish I'd have come to terms with that a lot sooner because it allowed me to have empathy for them and forgive them. Not saying that everyone who goes through trauma has to forgive people who give them trauma, it was just helpful for me personally, and I think that this book would have helped me a lot with that. Next we do have Marjorie, one of the saddest songs on Evermore, I swear to goodness. For this prompt we do have to pick a book with a moving message. I do have a lot of books with moving messages on my shelves, but one in particular I decided to pick up is Grown by, again, Tiffany D. Jackson. This is also featured in my January wrap-up, so I'll leave, again, that link down below if you want to go and see more in-depth thoughts, and also my Goodreads review will be down there as well. But Grown is about Enchanted, who is an aspiring black singer who's trying to make it in this world, and then she meets Corey Fields, and they kind of develop this really intimate relationship that no one else really knows about. Corey promises Enchanted that she will be really famous and big under his management, and they form this really intimate relationship that shouldn't really be happening because she is severely underage. Things go a little bit wrong for Enchanted when Corey Fields ends up murdered and she's one of the main suspect, and we stick with Enchanted on her journey and what it is like to be a black woman, not only in the music industry but also in the criminal justice system as well. I loved this, and it has such an empowering message and such a moving message because of the things that Enchanted goes through and the journey we go through with her and her family. It is so good, and I would highly recommend if you can stomach something that's got like quite dark themes and loads of content warnings. Again, check out my January wrap-up and my Goodreads review for all of those. Next song is Closure. For this we do have to pick a series in which we are desperately dying for the next book. For this I'm going to go with the Last Hour series. I am absolutely dying to read Chain of Iron because that fucking plot twist in Chain of Gold was unreal. I absolutely loved all of the characters in Chain of Gold, and I'm just really excited to carry on with the series, to be honest. I'm dying for it. And the last question, our last song on the Evermore book tag, is of course Evermore. For this we have to pick the perfect conclusion to a long-ish stunning story, a series. So when I was trying to decide on an answer for this question, I realised that I haven't finished a lot of series. So I thought I would go with a standalone because although like it's not a long series or anything, it still is the end of something because it's the end of a standalone, if that makes sense. Anyway, the satisfying ending that I would like to speak about a little bit today in this tag is at the end of It Only Happens in the Movies by Holly Bourne. So I absolutely adore this book, and it is one of Holly Bourne's young adult releases, one of her newer ones, and it is based again around the movies. So we follow Audrey, who is a film studies major, and she's doing a piece of coursework all about romance movies, and she wants to kind of like prove that romance movies make people have a high expectation of love and romance. And then she meets Harry, who is an amateur zombie filmmaker, and he asks her to be the main bride in his zombie film, and they kind of like fall in love. I'm going to mention spoilers now because I am going to be talking about ending and why it's satisfying. I don't think it's right not to spoil it. So if you would like to read this in the future based on what I've already said about this book, I would maybe skip to the outro when I have put this book down, because I will be about to spoil the ending. If you don't care, that's chill, but if you do care, just a little bit of a warning. The relationship between Audrey and Harry isn't what Audrey expects. He makes a lot of wrong choices, and in particular he makes a wrong choice by sleeping with his ex-girlfriend while still with Audrey. Harry honestly is begging for Audrey's forgiveness and to get back with him after he's made a mistake. And he even goes as far as making a compilation of moments from like romance movies, like a montage of really like happy moments from romance movies, and he plays it to Audrey in their own cinema. And for me, I would have just taken it back. Like at that point I'd be like, oh, you're so sweet. However, Audrey does not stand for that, and even though she acknowledges that he's done this nice thing for her and he is sorry, she can't get back with him because she doesn't trust him anymore, and a relationship without trust is nothing. After that, I had so much respect for Audrey and who she is as a character, and that she stood up for herself against Harry, and I just love this book, and the ending is so satisfying. Spoilers are now gone. You can now rejoin the video for the outro. Speaking of, thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed. If you did, please give this video a massive thumbs up and my channel a subscribe. I hope that you enjoy any books that you managed to pick up or any productive activity that you choose to do. And I also hope to see you in my next video, which is going to hopefully be either a vlog or my March TBR. Hope to see you then. Outros are really hard. Have a good time. Be safe. Goodbye.